Presenters, the natural science team.
My name is Narissa Spies. I grew up in Hawaii, and tell you a little story. So I'm from a beautiful island in the Pacific, Hawaii. When I was a kid, I learned how to swim the coast, the small side on east side of the island, and I would spend hours every day diving into the ocean, fish, and beautiful coral, and happiest memories I have as a child. And I got the opportunity to go back last summer before I started my PhD program, and I almost didn't recognize it because in the short time when I learned how to swim till now, the same coral was covered with algae and dead. There were no fish left, and it made me sad. I mean, this is my home. This is the place that I grew up in. And it kind of left me with no hope. And then when a world-renowned scientist says there's no hope of saving the global coral reef ecosystem, it makes you feel hopeless. And I'm just one person. What can I do? And we have found a bright spot of hope. This is the island of Ofu in American Samoa. And recently, coral was discovered here we call strong corals. And this coral is able to survive at high temperatures. And using this very simple tool, we're able to discover these strong corals. And no, there's not many. But using this simple apparatus, discovered by the Columbia Lab, basically contains a light source, some heating and chilling aquarium equipment, and this apparatus to hold the corals. We're able to test corals and find out if they're strong or not. So basically, it's really simple to do. Less than $200 to make one of these. And basically, you take corals that you think might be strong, and to test them, literally put them in the tank. If they remain healthy, like the ones on the left, they're strong corals. And if they bleach, well, they're like everybody else. So we've located these strong corals on Ofu, on a single reef, on one island in the middle of the ocean. But our vision for COS is a world where strong corals unite scientific and local communities in a global effort to fortify and protect reefs against rising ocean temperatures. Our vision for COS is over the next 3 years to be able to build partnerships across the Pacific and to be able to identify the locations of these strong corals. Now, without COS's help, the research would get done, but with their partnership, we can get this done quickly. We can lead the scientific discoveries that can get this information to local managers so they can make important choices about their reef. And Megan is going to tell you how we plan to do this.
Thank you, Narissa. So my name is Megan Morikawa, and I'm a member of the Columbia Lab. And I'm here to tell you, so here's the vision, here's the hope. Here's what we see. We see strong corals recognized across the Pacific, but how do we actually do this? What are we proposing COS do in order to make this initiative something of a reality? We pull off of the existing knowledge. Rare Conservation is an organization that has created successful projects across the globe using this simple 7-step program. They think that you can get any conservation result by breaking it down into these 7 steps. And these 7 steps are what we're going to do for you today. This is going to serve as the map for the rest of our presentation, and we're going to kind of guide you, Mike and I, over the next 10 minutes, will guide you through each aspect of this diagram here. So first we begin with the knowledge and attitude. We understand what the problem is. We get people hopeful. That knowledge and attitude serves as momentum to start to create interpersonal communication. The word spreads. Once we start to spread the message, we start to remove barriers. When we remove barriers, people start to behave differently. When they behave differently, the threats are reduced, and we get conservation results. So we're going to take you through this map over the next 10 minutes and let you kind of get an understanding of the specifics on how we intend to do this. So the first is knowing that there is hope. The knowledge that strong corals do exist and that they are affected by a conglomerate of local and global stressors, and that people who live in these reefs can do something about these local stressors. They can become empowered, they change their attitude, they get hope that these coral reefs that were their backyard, where they grew up in their childhood, maybe they have a more hopeful message than what they thought in the first place, and maybe they can affect that by changing their local stressors. We start with the knowledge and action. These serve as the momentum that start the interpersonal communication. But how do we spread the word most effectively? We shrink the change for making this global partnership by using existing resources. The Nature Conservancy and the Reef Resilience Program has locations all around the Pacific where they've had multi-decadal projects going on, working with local communities to work on finding reefs that are resilient. This would be a perfect project that would fit into that framework. There's Reef Check that works in Indonesia and Malaysia, and they have similar initiatives that are already going. We have universities that have locations, field sites, or either the labs, the universities themselves are located in the Pacific. We can partner with them. They may have the resources to get the permits necessary in order to test these corals in the first place. And that's only the beginning. There's the Coral Triangle Initiative, there's the Micronesia Challenge. There are many different partners that we can start with that already have these networks, that they already have the relationships established, and this would just be kind of adding to their programs already in place. When we spread the knowledge and we get people in the right attitudes, we start to remove barriers. But there are a couple barriers that we may need to remove ourselves. So we get all these partners together. How do we get them to work effectively together? Well, to make the best collective impact, social science says there's some simple steps that we can take. For example, start with just 7 collaborators. Keep your core collaborators. Make sure that your group of people have aligned interests. But this diverse collaboration makes them have a clear understanding of what they want to get, but also what they're willing to give in order to make this collaboration successful. We use concrete metrics in order to make sure that the goals and the destinations that we point to are clear, and that this can happen over a 3 to 5 year time scale. We start making the right environment, and when we make the right environment, we can start to leverage resources. We can leverage shared resources, we can share best practices, and we can create aligned goals in order to make everyone on board and get this project off the ground and running. We make the science foolproof. We give a simplified design and work with our partners with MBARI and start to make the stress tanks something that we can take into the field. They're self-sustaining, they're easy to assemble, they're easy to use. We create a step-by-step how-to guide in order to tell you, all right, here's the tank, here are the parts, here's how you test the coral, this is what you look for. And when you find a coral that's strong above a certain threshold of a temperature, this is what you do. You freeze it, you ship it to this location, and we start to collect samples all over the world of the strongest corals that we can use then to study what are the biological mechanisms that make them strong. And we know that because they are the corals that were able to stand up to the heat around the world. We provide basic training in order to make sure that people understand how to do what they want to do and that they are contributing to this global research effort. Mike is going to tell you a little bit about the behavior changes that we expect to see by kind of scripting these critical moves and the threat reductions and conservation results we hope to see by doing this.
Thanks, Megan. My name is Mike Fox. I'm at Moss Landing Marine Labs, and I want to talk to you about what behaviors we seek to change and how we believe we can do that with the barriers that we're removing, as Megan just described. And the most important behavior change we're seeking to work with here is improved communication on multi-scales across policymakers, decision makers, scientists, local communities, resource users, and managers. And this fits incredibly well with the vision of the Center for Ocean Solutions because they view themselves and strive to be the bridge that connects these two primary schools of thought and action. And we want to take the science and inform the policy, but we also want to take the policy to inform the science. And that's what's going to happen when we begin working on the ground across multiple locations at multiple scales. And when we do that, and if we do it successfully, we're going to increase the knowledge and awareness of the presence of these strong corals throughout the Pacific and potentially the world. And the knowledge of that there is a piece of hope, there's a bright spot on these reefs, will inspire a common sense of hope that unites people in the sciences, in the conservation organizations, and on the ground to begin working together in a united effort to preserve some of these places and manage resources successfully, to really begin removing threats on a local level that will ensure long-term sustainability of these ecosystems. And the best part is, we've seen this work. When Steve Columbia and his lab first located some of these corals on the island of Ofu, they used the knowledge of where they were and why that particular patch of reef was so successful to help begin changing some local construction plans that were already in place. And when Ofu wanted to extend the runway, they didn't spend the time to think about which direction they wanted to extend it in. They just figured, well, hey, we'll go on this side. But it was the knowledge of that. There were strong corals on that side of the reef. And when they were proposed to go extend in the other direction, it turns out that was the right decision. And we believe that if we start providing this information in multiple places, other success stories like this are not only likely, but they'll be simple. And we can capitalize on that to reduce local stressors and improve the resilience of reefs at a large scale. Not just the strong corals, but the fish that depend on the habitat and the resources provided by the reef, and the corals that may not be as strong as these unique ones we're discussing with you today. And what that will lead to are conservation results that have several main facets. First and foremost, we'll establish a Pacific-wide and eventually global distribution of where the strong corals exist. And by knowing this, we can integrate it with existing databases that tell us where threatened species are, where primary fisheries conservation and spawning areas may be. And by overlaying and integrating that knowledge, we can help create conservation priority areas that will take the daunting challenge of preserving a coral reef ecosystem and give people a starting point. It'll make that first step a little bit simpler. It'll shrink the change. The diverse samples that Megan was talking about coming in from all across the Pacific have the potential to lead to breakthroughs on genetic mechanisms that allow these strong corals to be strong. What is it that makes them strong? And sometimes genetics scare people. It seems complicated, but it's actually fairly simple if you think about it in the context of the classic cartoon. You guys remember Popeye?
Yeah.
Popeye ate his spinach, became stronger. If we have samples from all over the place, we can figure out what the spinach is that makes these corals strong. And if it's not the same for the corals that aren't as strong, we can use that knowledge to figure out what the spinach might be for the corals that aren't as strong. And through that, we can improve management decisions that encompass reefs as a whole and actually begin to create some substantial change. And finally, we believe that the conservation result that may be most important in moving this effort forward is a paradigm shift in the current management and conservation thinking and strategies. And this will allow science to work through multiple mechanisms to the local community level and develop an innovative and collaborative framework that will allow us to achieve some of these results on a scale that we haven't seen before. And Jack is going to tell you exactly why we believe COS is the organization to help that happen.
Thanks, Mike. Jack here. So why cost? Why do we think that cost is